I want to explore something that causes so much confusion in the personal development space, and that is the difference between therapy and coaching, or NLP based coaching, which is what I do, in a really clear and educational way, because these two forms of support serve different purposes, and understanding the difference allows you to choose which one is best for your support and where you are at in your life. So, to start with, something really important is that therapy is incredibly valuable. It provides clinical support, trauma processing, emotional stabilizing, and a safer container to unpack experiences that may have shaped you in profound ways. For many people, therapy is essential and it is life changing. Coaching is not therapy. It is not designed to diagnose, to treat mental illness, or to replace clinical support. It operates from a complete different framework entirely. So, what is the difference? Therapy often focuses on understanding and interpreting the past, whereas NLP focuses on changing how your mind is actually currently structured so that you can respond differently in the future. So, in therapy, you might explore your childhood experiences, your family dynamics, the past relationships, maybe the trauma or the grief or attachment patterns, and you might unpack how certain events have made you feel and how those experiences has shaped your beliefs around yourself and the world. There is often a very, very strong emphasis on emotional processing and building more awareness around these events. And that awareness can be really powerful. It gives you a bit of context to your experience, and it helps you make sense of patterns that may have previously felt a little bit confusing or overwhelming. NLP, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, it approaches things slightly differently. So rather than primarily asking what has happened, it asks how is your brain currently coding what has happened, and how is that belief system and coding influencing your behavior today. So the assumption is in NLP, your brain creates these internal representations of experiences through our five senses, and those representations create emotional responses which then drive our behavior. I will link a video here about the meta communication model so you can have a little look. But when something happens in the present, your reaction is not just about the event itself, it's about the meaning and the context your brain has automatically assigned to it based on the past conditioning that you have had. So, as an example, imagine someone with an anxious attachment in a relationship. In therapy, they might explore how the inconsistent caregiving in childhood led to the fear of abandonment, right? They might process those early experiences and gain a really deep understanding of why they feel triggered when somebody pulls away. In NLP, we would absolutely acknowledge that origin, but then we would ask, when somebody pulls away now, what actually happens inside your mind? What comes up? What image flashes up? What sentence do you say to yourself? What meaning do you assign to that behavior? Does your brain instantly code it as like, oh my God, I'm being rejected, I'm not enough? Because the reaction is being created in the present moment through that internal belief system and the internal coding. So NLP then works directly with that internal process to change the way that we see it and interpret it, right? And we use some really powerful techniques that create new responses so that if a similar event happens again in the future, we have created a new pathway because our nervous system has this different template to follow now. Another key distinction is the concept of like time. So therapy can be very past orientated, particularly in modalities that emphasize trauma and processing in childhood experiences. The goal is often to integrate and make peace with what has happened. With the work that I do, it tends to be a lot more future orientated. While the past is obviously explored to understand how a pattern or a belief was formed, the emphasis really quickly then shifts towards who you are becoming and how do you want to respond to this moving forwards using the techniques that I've mentioned before. So for an example, instead of saying like, why do I always feel rejected? In coaching, the focus becomes like, how does the secure version of yourself, how does she deal with this situation? How can we install a new response so that it becomes natural? So it becomes a lot less about analyzing the story and repeatedly talking about the same thing over and over again. And it's more about creating a new response to yourself. In therapy, progress might be registered in increased emotional awareness or greater stability. And those are such meaningful markers. But with my clients, the change is measured behaviorally. Are you setting boundaries previously that you would have avoided? Are you making decisions from a complete different identity than before? And the emphasis is really, really about that embodied change, not just having the awareness and the intellectual clarity that therapy might. And a big part of how we do this is by mentally rehearsing and embodying the version of ourselves that already thinks and feels and behaves differently, so that because the brain cannot clearly distinguish between a vividly imagined experience to real ones. And so consciously creating new internal visualizations and representations of the future, you can actually begin to shift what feels familiar and possible to yourselves. So this can include building real life evidence to support the identity that you're wanting to step into. So if someone has always seen themselves as anxious or small or reactive, part of the work with them would be deliberately creating experiences that go against that self-concept, so that the nervous system can gather new evidence. Now, I really want to clarify that this is not to say that therapy and NLP are the exact same. Many people benefit from both. Therapy can provide such a stable foundation, so like I said at the beginning, for all of the emotional processing and all that kind of stuff. But NLP is perfect and amazing for people with identity change and behavioral change. So coaching or NLP is not appropriate for anyone that has severe trauma or complex situations or mental health conditions that require that clinical care. Therapy can hold that perfect domain. With coaching, it helps you restructure how those experiences are coded in your mind so that you can change and move differently moving forwards. And knowing the distinction between these two allows you to choose consciously rather than assuming that they are interchangeable. So if this has clarified anything for you, I'd be interested to know which part stood out the most for you: the way that your brain codes the experience, the focus on the future pacing, or the difference in how the change is measured. If you would like a deeper explanation on how beliefs are formed and changed at the subconscious level, then that is definitely something that I can explore in another video. But for now, that's it. I'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.